I know. I don't think we ever realize that we're going to be in ministry or know how or where we're going to serve. I don't
Right.
think any of us actually know. I think it just creeps up on us. And
Hmm.
and it's like it's a knocking at the heart or it's a piece of us. And
Right.
then we're there. And then once we are there, we go, oh, I'm home and I have to be here. Even
Right.
though you have to figure out the rest of the things around your life, you just need to be there.
Welcome to Story Power, a bi monthly podcast where my guests and I chat about stories and creativity in all different styles and formats. My name is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden, and my goal is to promote what Dale Carnegie stated in his famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said, instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do what they do. That's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism, and it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. It's my firm belief that the goal of most creative people is to try to understand themselves and others. That's what makes artwork of all kinds so compelling. But more than that, the personal stories of my guests promote understanding as well. Roger C. Schenck, a cognitive scientist, said, human beings are not ideally set up to understand logic. They are ideally set up to understand stories. It's my hope that Story Power will help us understand each other better by sharing the stories of my guests.
Tiffany, I'm so happy to have finally for us to have gotten together. Um,
Yes.
this is episode 94, and I'm talking to Tiffany Largie. Did I say your name right?
Largie, you're close, pretty close.
Largie. Oh, see, I should have known because it's Midgorden, not Midjordan. Okay, great. And oh my goodness, Tiffany, I was looking at your bio and I was tired. You are a powerhouse woman.
So glad to be with you.
I'm happy and want to hear your story because it sounds so fascinating.
I appreciate that. And I feel wholeheartedly that everybody kind of has a story,
Hmm.
and this story that they have is probably the most important piece of everything that they can do on this planet because it's the only thing that they own. So as much as it's like my story, it's more like the story, the Tiffany Largie story.
Hmm.
It's kind of hard for me to even believe that I'm here today because I was just this morning talking with our production manager, and I was like, man, I almost 20 years ago, I remember being silenced and not feeling like I had a voice and not feeling like I had the ability to even talk or share any part of myself
Hmm.
because of how we grew up, like I don't know if it was like that for you, but for me in my house or in my world or my culture, it was like not seen and not heard, but like I could express myself as long as it was in line, like as long as it was in
Hmm.
acceptable terms. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yes.
And the truth is that it's only like a decade now. I feel like that I have given myself permission, I think is the right word, to just own like how I actually feel, what I think,
Hmm.
what is true for me about this, or, how does that person make me feel, or what do I want to do? And no, I'm not okay with that. You know what I mean? Just saying the things that are sometimes unpopular, sometimes not politically correct, but they're true to me.
Right. Yes. So, since you were a single mom and you started businesses, how old were you and where were you on that journey to say your truth?
So I'm 21 forever is the going term. I've been 21 for just about ever, and I'm gonna stick to that. My oldest daughter is about to be 21, which makes this conversation even more awkward. But you get to a place where you decide that you've had enough, you're done. And
Mhm.
for me back then, 20 years ago, when I was putting Jada Maya to bed hungry, I just wanted to die most of the time. I felt
Mhm.
like God had abandoned me
Yeah.
somehow, way, shape, form, figure. I had a child, I had another child, and I was married. And that's the weirdest part about it. Someone asked me the other day, like, "Oh, it's because you had children out of wedlock," and I was like, though the wed was locked somewhere because I was married. But you could still be married and be a single mom. You could still be married and be
Mhm.
single in this life. You could still be married and be going all through the same drama and pain and lostness as you would if you were by yourself.
Mhm.
Once I made a decision to stop thinking small and really just own my value for what it was, that's when I went from being this crazy single mom, pissed off and angry all the time, to building a handful of multiple six-figure businesses and then building a multiple seven-figure business.
Mhm.
I don't even evolve that conversation because today I've built this really cool brand and movement in the world that I'm just thrilled to be a part of, called Do the Damn Thing.
Yes, I want to hear more about that because, yeah, I have a friend, Dr. Maria Church, who has a business called Love Based Leadership. And it sounds like the two of you should get together.
I love that. I love that. I'd welcome the invitation for sure.
So tell about do the damn thing or do the damn thing.
Yeah, in 2015, I sold a company, and my business partners back then were Xerox Corporation, Hewlett Packard. I was in the hardware and software space.
Hmm.
Once I made a decision to stop thinking small, about my ability to use my story to help people, because I found myself thinking small again. I had sold my company and I was really pissed off most of the time. I was like, I'm hearing so many people who say that they can help people build a, $150,000 business, but they have barely built a $30,000 $150,000 a year business, or I'm going to teach you how to make 150,000, but they've barely made 30,000. And it
Hmm.
just felt so awkward and weird, and I was lost by it. And so, I didn't know everything. I didn't know everything there was to know about helping people, but I knew how to help people.
Yes.
So I began this process of speaking and teaching around the world. And here I am a decade later. I can't believe I'm a decade later. I hate saying these big numbers because I'm like, wait a second. It's a decade later and another decade. That means I'm grown.
Yes. Well, I didn't figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up until I was like 54 years old. So,
I'm here for it. I hear you. Yes, ma'am. I hear you.
so do you have specific things that you teach, or are you one of those people who says, now we need to find out how you can build your business? So, how do you proceed in your teaching?
Well, the core of what I teach is um actually today it's evolved. I teach the human, whether it's the CEO who's running a multi-million dollar company
Yeah.
or the individual human who's like, I know there's something more out there. I teach them that all of it starts with their story, and that
Right.
their ability to get in front of their story and turn it into a company culture, a sales process, marketing,
Hmm.
their ability to be a spokesperson or get in front of the challenges happening in their family,
Yeah.
that's how they answer and respond to life's problems with the one tool or resource that they actually have, their story.
Yeah.
My mission or my life's work is wrapped up in this really simple statement. I exist, my family here, my team, we exist to tap into the world's untapped potential. And that's the core of what we do here. And the core of what we're interested is finding the world's untapped potential wherever it might be and tapping into it.
Hmm. Oh, wow. I love that. Yes. I used to be a teacher. I taught, my background's in theater. So I taught.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. I taught drama at high school, and then someone wanted that job, so they maneuvered me out. So I went to a border. I live in Arizona, and so I went and taught at a border town and taught English because I had enough English credits that I could be a highly qualified English teacher, even though
Yeah.
I'd never taught it. And and then I moved to teaching theater at the college level. And I used to tell my students, everyone has a genius.
Mm-hmm.
And my high school students would look at me like, what are you talking about? But I would say, it's kind of your job in this life is to figure out what your genius is. And so it sounds sort of like what you do.
Yes, for sure. To find out what your genius is, you just have another language for it. And I love the fact that you were in the education space. I have so much respect for teachers. Um, as I have a daughter in the 7th grade who is 13, and I also have 2 children who are in college, not in high school.
Ah, yeah.
And I their teachers have been the cornerstone of me being able to do what I do,
Mm-hmm.
and them being with me in partnership and helping to mold and shape them when I am not there.
Yes.
Um, I love the fact that you told your kids that they were geniuses. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, because, well, my whole life journey has been to learn to love myself. Now, I had really great parents, really supportive, and but all grow up in this culture where you're too tall or you're too short or you're too fat or you're a woman. And because my first degree was in religious studies and I was the only woman in the program. And there were all these Bible thumping people that said you need to change your major, you are
Yep.
not supposed to be taking. So I kind of understand what you're talking about. uh, but I wanted my students to start thinking in terms of, hey, I'm okay just the way I am, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
and so also when I was teaching, especially when I was teaching acting class, I would say, now, acting class, I'm hoping to teach you things that you will be able to use out in the real world.
Yeah, for sure. How cool is that? Theater? Yes.
So, do you mind telling a little bit about uh, how you realized that you were alone in your marriage? Because, I think people think, oh, I'm going to be so happy when I'm married. And, that's not always the case.
You know, that's actually a really neat question. I knew I was alone in my marriage from day one. And I think a lot of women they don't own the fact that they knew that they shouldn't have gotten married to the person before they got married.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that was me.
Uh-huh.
I saw all the flags, all the things in the air. And because of religion and all of what you just called the Bible thumpers,
Hmm.
I moved forward with marriage because it was the right thing in God's eyes. It would make me holy. I wouldn't be as sinful and all the other ridiculous doctrine that comes with it.
Hmm.
I spent 6 years in that marriage, and I knew I was alone when I was the only one looking at the current state and looking ahead. It
Hmm.
was always up to me to figure out how the bills were going to get paid for the most part. It was always up to me to figure out what was going to happen with Jada and Maya, like that, food and things like that. Like I really never got the opportunity to share a moment, like a real moment with someone else who helped me to carry a load of any capacity.
Mm.
In that marriage, he was too focused on drugs and himself and the lostness of what was happening in his head to even realize or pay attention um to what was happening.
Mm.
Um, Fast forward though, I've been after that, I'll tell you, in my marriage, um, I think that we go through seasons. Like I've been married now for 15 years
Mhm.
to my current husband, and he's really a great man. He
Mhm.
is. He's the total opposite of me and extremely quiet. But funny enough, he's often as quiet as he is also he's an entertainer, and he's on stage equally as much as I am, which is fascinating, probably more than I am, way more people. And what's been interesting is there was a chapter in our journey where I found myself quiet. Um, and I got quiet during that marriage because I felt like I didn't, how do I say this? Like I wasn't really honest with how I was feeling. And sometimes we put expectations on other people, and then when they don't meet that expectation, they let us down. And we forget that life and everything about a real friendship and a real partnership is that it's a two-way street. And I had learned all of these, I don't want to call them bad behaviors, but behaviors from women before me, you know, like grandmothers and aunts and church, like, you know, of like setting expectations that are not unrealistic, but they're just not fair, and not living up to the expectations for myself. It's kind of like you want to be like, you want a better friend, but then you're not a better friend yourself, you know?
Yes.
And then this other part of it, which is we just expect people like I think I expected him to just know what I wanted, know certain things, and only to find out that you can't really expect anything from anybody unless you tell them. You have to tell them. You have to communicate. I didn't realize how poor I was as a communicator when I got silent. And it's easy for me to remove myself emotionally from that, because I get fed emotionally by so many other people. I'm very fortunate. Because of my line of work, I have garnered the best working relationships. I mean, we have the best people on the planet working in our companies. We have the best clients, I swear, on my life on the planet, who care for me. And I have great, deep relationships. So it was easy for me to push this, not relationship to the side, but to operate in a routine fashion with this relationship and to get fed and to feed into others. It wasn't until I asked myself a question about, you know, like the aloneness that you feel is because you're not sharing. Like if you don't pour into the cup, and then like, how do I say this? Like, okay, I make tea sometimes on a pot. Like this morning, I made tea in a pot. I have kettles. I got all the contraptions at home, but I literally got a piece of ginger this morning at like 6 a.m, a pot of water, and I boiled ginger, and I had ginger tea for breakfast. Now, the truth is that you have to pour the water in the pot and then turn on the stove for the stupid thing to get hot. It sounds so simple, but that's exactly what happens in a relationship. You can't just show up with a cup and and sugar. You have to actually get water, pour it in the flipping pot, and you can't just put the ginger in as it is. You got to peel this thing. If you really want a great cup of ginger tea, you need to peel the ginger, break it in a couple of pieces, open it up a bit, then stick it in the water. You want to turn it on, but you don't want to burn the thing. So you got to turn it on like level 5 out of 6, 4 out of 6, and let it kind of take its time. And that's the thing. I realized that I wasn't pouring water in the pot, but I was putting the pot on the stove and turning on the damn thing. And then I'd be like, where the hell is the tea? Does anybody know where the tea is? I don't see any tea here. Only for me to figure out that water wasn't being poured in the pot on a regular basis. And I didn't acknowledge the fact that someone was always putting the pot on the stove for me to put the water in. And that's the other part of this, And because I wasn't showing up with the water, there really was no possibility of tea being made. And hence, I found myself not alone, but like in that feeling, in that feeling. And, as I look back today, and I know I'm on a leg here, but as I look back today, I'm like, wow. It's wild what will happen if we look at our situations and we just start first. We go first.
Right.
Exactly. Instead of me waiting for the other person to go, okay, great, here's the water. Let me go and pour it. I actually woke up one day and I made a decision. I was like, what will happen if I just take go to the store and buy a bottle of water myself? I'm just going to buy my own water, show up with this thing, pour it inside, and see if we can make this cup of tea together. A game changer, absolute game changer.
Yeah, I love that analogy. My husband is a quiet person too. Actually, we both are. And I remember when we first got married, we've been married 43 years now. But it was only like 7 or 8 years ago that I realized, I need to be interested in the things he's interested in if I'm going to get him to talk to me.
Yes, ma'am.
So he is a technology nerd. And he loves all things Apple Computer, and he listens to all the podcasts and all that stuff. So one day I said, "So what's going on in the tech world?" Oh my gosh, he started talking and telling me things, and my eyes are kind of rolling back like I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, I hear you.
But that's
I
okay.
get it.
I kept looking at him and I kept going, "Oh, okay." And so I would ask him questions. "Okay, I don't understand what that is. Can you tell me about that?" And you know what happened eventually? He would come home from work. Instead of, I would say, "How was work today?" "Oh, fine." He would start telling me, "Oh, this is what happened at work today."
Mm-hmm.
you know and it was just because I realized, oh, I need to be interested in the things, or at least ask him about the things he's interested in.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
and it
Uh-huh.
and it's like that with everybody, even my best friends. I don't have a whole bunch of them, but yeah, I want to hear their stories, and that's partly why I started Story Power, because I want to hear people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to hear about the stories, not only their stories, but the story of what they consume and what they learn from it. Because I grew up with parents who we would sit down and discuss the television and movies that we were watching.
Really?
It wasn't like he could just say, "Oh man, that was really good," and then go to bed or, whatever. No, no, no. We had to talk about them. And why did the people in the movie or the television show make this decision or that decision?
You know what? That's so cool that you said that, because my family does that. I didn't do that with my parents,
Uh huh.
but my husband, myself, and my kids, we go see a movie, and the next 40 minutes is, what was your favorite part? What hurt you the most? What do you think they did this? What would happen if we actually we're literally like, all right, let's get into it. It's a thing. It
Yeah.
doesn't evolve. We structure it. I
Mhm.
love the fact that you highlighted that. Did you do that your whole life, and did you continue it on? I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember when we were really little, we would watch, they had the Disney on Sunday nights, they would have the Disney show. I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember what it was called. And they would, play the Disney movies, or they had lots of documentaries and stuff that Disney used to do. And we would watch, when we were really little, we went to bed early. So we'd
Mm-hmm.
watch that. And then but we'd talk about it. So I remember being 6 or 7 or 8 years old and doing that. And then as I got older, especially when I was in high school, sometimes I'd come home from the game and start watch because I was in pep club. I'd start watching a late movie, and Dad would come out and watch with me, and then we'd talk about the movie during the commercials. It was always easy to talk during the commercials back then,
Yeah.
because there was no cable or anything like that, and that actually influenced all of my decisions of education and career and
Yeah.
all of that. So that's why I did theater. That's why I took religious studies, because I was interested in what were the stories of those people back then in the Bible, and how did they interact with each other? How did they interact with the divine? All that stuff. That's why I was in that. I wasn't thinking I was going to be a minister in the church. So,
I know. I don't think we ever realize that we're going to be in ministry, or know how or where we're going to serve. I don't
right.
think any of us actually know. I think it just creeps up on us, and
Hmm.
it's like it's a knocking at the heart, or it's a piece of us. And
Right.
then we're there. And then once we are there, we go, oh, I'm home and I have to be here. Even though
Right.
you have to figure out the rest of the things around your life, you just need to be there.
Yes.
Mm.
Because what you have done is you have figured out your own style of ministry in the world. You don't have to be
I have.
ordained.
I have. That's a fair statement. It took me a moment. I paused, but the truth is that what we do at Do the Damn Thing is a ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, in addition to me running other companies, like Do the Damn Thing is where my heart lies every day when I wake up and when I go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think about the human that is in that second or third world country, or the person who is right here in the US,
Mm-hmm.
and they're underneath the underdog, and they still don't believe they're possible.
Right.
They're being silenced in whatever situation they're in.
Right.
They are only valued for what they can do for another human. They are very rarely get to experience what it's like to just be valued for who they are, or
Right.
valued for what they know, you know? And that's men and women. This is not just true to women at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel wholeheartedly that my responsibility while I have breath and while I'm here is I've been given the task and the capacity and the ability to reach those people in a creative way intimately, and to connect my heart to theirs. And really not get them to buy a product or get them to take an action, get them to take an action for themselves. And that's the greatest, like the most exciting part of me waking up is that, if that makes any sense. So yes, I never refer to it as a ministry, but as I get more mature in the space that I'm in, because I've been teaching now for 10 years, and 11 years ago, I had no interest in teaching. I just kept getting fed up and pissed off, being taken advantage of, watching people being overlooked in the personal development space and in church. I was watching people being overlooked and mistreated and, acknowledged when they could tithe. Just like same difference of acknowledge when you can make the payments for the program, and I just felt sick by it. And I'm going to do something about it. And each year I did, and I just did it bigger and bigger and bigger. And here we are today. We'll Do the Damn Thing is a worldwide movement, and it's far bigger than anything I could have ever imagined. And I realized this year that we haven't even scratched the surface, which is what excites me most about what we're doing next.
Yeah, really. Because that's the thing. We all have to feel that we are enough. And if we don't, nothing good's gonna happen for us. So
Correct.
I love your mission. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love it too.
That's great. Now I have your social medias. Matt sent them to me. But do you have any, anything you want to say to entice people to go check you out?
No enticement here. I would just say connect. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
connect, not follow, connect.
Mm-hmm.
So send me a note, tiffany@tiffanylargie.com. Ask me a question on a social media. I will respond myself.
Mm-hmm.
Subscribe to YouTube, ask a question. I will respond, because we're here to serve and we're here to help. So that
Yeah.
is one of the few and easiest ways to actually to move something forward. It's really to
Mm-hmm.
connect. Don't just follow me. That doesn't serve
Yeah.
neither of us.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you just have to go check somebody out to see if their energy matches to what you need.
Totally.
Yeah. So
I
that's what
get
you're
that.
encouraging people to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. Come stalk me a little bit. Yeah, it'll be good.
Come stalk me. I love that. Oh, yeah. That's right. Oh, so we we have about 10 minutes left, a little bit less than 10 minutes.
Okay, awesome.
I want to know where you travel to.
Where do I travel to?
Yeah,
Gosh,
because you said that you teach all over the world. Do you travel to those places, or do you
I
only
physically
do it?
no, I physically get on a plane and I head to Thailand and I head to London and I go to Cuba and
Mm-hmm.
I've gone to the actual countries. Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
cool.
See, so no, I'm not an online virtual provider where we reach countries from the comfort of a place. Yes, we do, but we actually do the work in those places, whether we're bringing clients with us
Mm-hmm.
or we're boots on the ground. One of my wants and deepest desires right now is to spend the month of like at about 6 weeks from now, molding and shaping how do I set up a foundation outside of the US? How do I create, because we're going to Wembley.
Uh-huh.
And that's what my team and I are focused on. That is what our dream is. And so as I wrap my head around how do we do that in
Mhm.
this decade, I know that the backbone of it is going to be rooted in us having presence, physical presence somewhere else.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes. Oh, that's so great. I love it. Oh, you think big. I love it. I'm only just learning now. I'm 70. I'm just learning how to think big.
That's okay. That's okay. I love the fact that you're there, and I'm honored to be in this space with you. And you say you're 70, but the truth is that you have decades ahead of you. You have so much life living.
Oh, I
Like you've
know.
literally just gotten started. There's so
Mhm.
much for you to do, for sure.
Yeah, I love what I do. So I'm just learning how to expand it and learning how to market it in my own way. And yeah, connecting with people that support me. I mean,
Mhm.
it sounds like that's what you do. You try to help people do exactly that.
Exactly that. Yes, ma'am.
That
100%.
that's so cool. Do you have anything else you want to say before we go?
I just want to say it has been such an honor to be here with you and to be with you and your audience and to learn about you one, but more importantly, I love the fact that you have a focus in your life and in your journey of uh, walking into people's story and their stories, and more importantly, standing inside of the truth. It has been you've asked me a question that definitely had me go, huh? And in that, I know that I've grown as a result of this experience. So I really just want to say thank you.
Oh, wow. Tiffany, I am so glad we finally got together.
Yay!
Thank you so much for being my guest.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend and give us a rating and/or review on your favorite podcast app. It will help people find us. I invite you to join my Patreon community at patreon.com/storypower, all one word. Or if you like, you can subscribe to Story Power on Apple Podcasts. It's my aim to build a community where we discuss the stories we love and talk about what we learned from them. I offer extra audio content and story suggestions to my patrons on both platforms. Remember, as Philip Pullman said, after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Let's spread the story love. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.